Well, alright, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for another cast over. Pronogo here taking a break from Antikythera and Dreamhold development, the latter of which hasn't even actually been formally announced on this YouTube channel yet. I'll get to that eventually, don't worry. To bring you another AI cast over. So, what are we going to do today? We're actually going to try to watch Golden Souls. This is a map that I have done numerous cast over attempts on in the past, but always ran into some performance issue or another. Usually it's a crash. We'll see if that has changed, because I actually have not tried to look at this map in quite a while. And it will give me an opportunity to discuss a few things, one of which being the art of pre-placing certain things and the design philosophy that goes into that. So if you're more into scenario design and that sort of thing, you might actually be able to take some lessons from this. But a brief primer on our players. We do indeed have an electric orange Zerg player in the center. He's actually a team of his own. Meanwhile, some Orions, the Russian green Bio Terran, and the dark spring green mech armor Terran. Those guys are sandwiching the Zerg and will be on the same team. We've got a Yemen Blue and I think Goldenrod? Yes, Goldenrod, Protoss and Terran army. These are making up the Golden Armada. And aside from that, we have the Blood and Silver Pink Protoss. These guys are the Calendric Knights. So we'll be able to take a look at a feature I'm quite proud of in a moment when we see the Calendric Knights themselves drop an assimilator. I'm assuming that's going to happen sometime soon. Is there anybody else who's building an assimilator as Protoss? This guy already has one. So there it is. Hey, it's not underlaid anymore. I figured out a solution to this when I was looking through the game code. I probably already talked about that in a previous cast over, I feel like. But if you missed that, then now you know. So the Zerg player who is taking an expansion already does have a decent amount of pre-placed stuff. They've got a Quasrock pool, so they've got 2 units available to them immediately that they can train, a larval colony for extra initial production, and an Iral Iris. They've got a decent amount of stuff that's pre-placed. Now the Orion Terrans as well have a pre-placed double depot and factory on the right side, and this guy's got a double depot and a barracks, or maybe 2 barracks? I think he's actually built this one, I believe anyway. I'm pretty sure I only placed 1. Either way, the decision to place some things initially for some players comes from the logic, anyway, that one of the things that you want to achieve in a scenario is you kind of want to be sieging a preeminent position, something that already existed beforehand. In certain occasions, that makes sense. That's the context of a mission. However, other times, yeah, you are just initially coming in. And even when you're initially arriving, maybe it makes sense to have a pre-placed pylon or some pre-placed units that came with your scribes to set up the Nexus, for example. And then obviously you would want to have a couple extra pylons so you're not immediately supply blocked. This isn't Warcraft 2, unsurprisingly. So yeah, there's all sorts of reasons to occasionally be dropping some pre-placed units. And a lot of them come from story framing. The question then becomes, how do you make it so that they're not the same level of bad as they tend to be in a lot of these cases? And we'll hold that thought. I'll answer that, keep you in suspense for a moment, because we got to see how the Zerg, if the Zerg, are able to deal with this. They've got a decent amount of static defense, but not at their expansion, which happens to be where the enemies have attacked from first. So they will probably end up losing this, although I say that there are 2 Ahmeds and only one of them is attacking the hatchery, so it will actually be some time before this base fully falls. And the other question that has to be asked is how many defenders are they actually able to scramble over here? It looks like they've got an okay amount. A Cyprian has joined the fight. I wouldn't expect that to be too devastating. And this Hurakan is very dangerously close to death. A single Zethracore should deal the damage, because the 1 armor, 5 damage. You get the idea. So that should actually seal the fate of that guy. But at this point, it doesn't look likely, just because the units, they get anti-collided, they get ganged up on initially. And actually, he's actually positioned his low HP Hurakan. Oh, there it goes. It finally died. Positioned him a little bit far back. So yeah, it looks like with the double sunken in play, this attack force is not long for this world, but it has succeeded in doing some initial destabilization. Speaking of such behavior, I don't see any scribe corpses over here, so that first Panoptis, and usually this player sends like 2 Panoptises and an Aurora or something like that as their first early strike force. The Calendric Knights sending some units down here is surprising. I actually didn't expect this. We don't have too much longer to mosey on and talk about pre-placed unit theory, so I'll use this opportunity now, because pretty soon the map will just devolve into skirmishes all over the place. Which is quite satisfying from my perspective, but not so conducive to being able to string together some cogent thoughts. That being said, So we were talking about, what's the logic of how do you make sure that your pre-placed units don't essentially upset the balance or become just not something that the player actually wants to deal with. Well, there's a couple of different ways that you can go about doing something like this. And the main thing to keep in mind is fairness. So when you place a Zerg player between two allied Terran players, and you say, this Zerg player is on a team by themselves, they do not have an ally. Well, that's obviously a patently unfair situation on its face. So how do you make it so that that is not unfair? How do you make it so that we have the opportunity as the Zerg player, if you're conceptualizing playing from this position, like what do you actually do to ensure that you still have what it takes to compete? You still have the tools available to you to be competitive. Well, obviously, the Zerg AI have been gone through a number of iterations over time, so while they are, a little disjointed currently, and they obviously still don't have an up-and-running expansion, it doesn't really seem like they'll be able to survive very long. They are morphing these colonies, finally, so that's nice. They only idled a few of them. Try to reduce that as much as possible, and the extra sunken will definitely be important here. It is a shame that they didn't actually build any by the expansion. They probably should have learned that, but hey, they're pulling them in. And they actually do indeed have a spore colony that they can use against the air units. It should not fall, particularly since the ground units were very busy. And now it's just a single Ahmed. And I'm sorry to say, but my man, you're out of here. So when you're trying to target fairness, one of the easiest ways to make sure that you do that is to assemble the map from the perspective of essentially trying to shadowbox you playing in the spot that the AI is. So what would you do, and what things can you do? What tools do you even have at your disposal in order to defend against attacks or to stage offensives yourself? Well, if it's a big map, you're going to need a lot of units, and you're going to need a lot of production structures and a lot of bases so that you can remax and still keep a mobile defense force to handle anything that's coming your way, but also be able to stage offensives. So you need build space, you need expansions that are defensible, you need a starting position that might be a bit more defensible. And if you don't have some of these elements, then what is making up the difference? It could be pre-placed things, it could be an AI ally, it could be maybe some initial area or some area that you can take, a couple of areas that you can take early on in the game to facilitate some sort of offensive or defensive play. And in this case, the Zerg needed to play at a higher level of skill than what they actually did in order to stay alive. It is a bit weird that the Calendric Knights are spending so much time targeting the Zerg. They've actually launched 2 different attacks against them already, which is not actually what I would expect coming into this. That being said, though, I'm not necessarily surprised that the Zerg fell. And obviously with the Orions coming in from the right and the Protoss coming in from the left, and then just rebuffing 2 attacks from the Bioterrans, like, you actually were thinking, oh, maybe they're set. Maybe they can actually survive this. But at this point, it doesn't appear to be the case. So that Gorgon should clean up the Spore Colony. And then at that point, we've got Terrans in the neck of the woods. Actually, he kited himself nearly to death, but I think maybe we were at the bullet limit temporarily, so or no, he might have just been barely out of range. I don't know what happened there. Either way, he's survived with 8 HP. Probably shouldn't have kited there at all, but whatever. And yes, indeed, we do have the armored Terran coming in with some assistance. His units seem to be disinterested in actually being here. I think he was AFK, guys. He was just AFK. It is kind of funny when you see AI do that, because obviously they're never really supposed to do that, but in a paradoxical way, it does make you feel like they're a real player again, which isn't really what we're targeting, but it's kind of amusing in the moment, like, oh, he forgot to order his units to attack. Yeah, idled them while he was doing something else. He's massing up another attack force, so makes sense. So now the Calendric Knights, the Blood Protoss, can try to turn their attention towards these clown emojis of the Golden Republic, but it doesn't really seem likely, considering obviously we've got some Shadow Terrans intercepting a large number of Cantavuses, which is kind of interesting to see. Now, Aspirants are a unit that might need a little bit of a slight balance change here and there, but I actually think that mostly it'll just come down to probably removing their passive and maybe implementing that into a more spammable unit so that you can make more use of it, and just restructuring it in general. I actually think that they're quite heavy hitters. They're quite good at essentially being slightly like a tier 1.5 in terms of stats, Drakadin. However, you can access them as Terran, which obviously can accentuate different compositions. And, I mean, if you're Protoss, who doesn't want a higher tier Drakodin, right? Drakodins themselves are so good by default, so it only makes sense to potentially look into that. Oh, Iquare, you spawned in at the wrong time, my man. Might want to go back to sleep. Oh, the scribes are dying too. Does he even have anything that he can use against these things? He's trying to kite into them, which is actually pretty smart. Like, hey, Vika actually made it so that they kite into them. And now they're dealing the friendly fire damage. You got the vassals over here. That was still a lot of dead scribes, though. I'm not sure how I feel about that. Over here, the battle seems to have thinned out. There's still some more stragglers, and this expansion did get denied. It didn't get canceled, crucially. It actually did get denied, and it looks like it's about to be denied again. Cantavis is coming in with the storms, not kiting out of them because we haven't achieved that technology just yet, but you know how it is. Calendric Knights, meanwhile, hi. We heard you just sent a force over here. Let's see how you are at defending. Meanwhile, a Bio Squad tries to join the fight. This is a phalanx, courtesy of the Golden Terrans. This is what I was talking about with those skirmishes, and yep, base denied again. This defense shouldn't actually be so difficult for this Terran player. He does have a expanded base since the last time you may have seen a castover on this map. And yeah, I mean, he's finally getting a third as well, so that should give him, let him be in the money. I actually like the Valkyries here. They're idling uselessly currently, but considering the anti-air units, or the air units that are fielded by the silver-pink Protoss, it's actually quite important to have some sort of hard-hitting anti-air unit. And that's exactly what we are seeing in general. Some nice splits on the Hierophants. Obviously that short-lived as well, but I mean, it goes from bad to worse. Now, thankfully, we do have a spinning Acantor, and that's always nice to see. But in general, when they're not spinning and they're actually functioning, it's also nice to see, because what it allows is the deaths of many men, as you can see here. Though we didn't really need Acantors for that, I suppose, but love this placement. Perfect. This is, you may not like it, but that is what peak performance looks like, according to the AI. I think they just have a different definition. Dude, this Atreus is a man. Look at him. Kite this, bitch. Ah, I thought for sure he was going to get like 3 more kills. Look at all the low HP units. That one Atreus kiting backwards was ridiculously powerful. I suppose the other units should have been trying to kite forwards between attacks instead of occasionally backwards or getting stuck. Like, I don't know what the fuck is happening here. Basically the same thing. But, yeah. It's still nice when it happens, you know? That could happen to a real player if they just blindly A-moved their units, and then they looked back and they're like, why do I have half a control group missing, and there's only 1 enemy unit? What the fuck? That's what they would have said. Or they would have said, Faun! Or whatever My Name Is Lil says when he gets annihilated. They're trying to set up some sort of defensive line here, which is always thematic. I don't know how successful they will be here. The Valkyrie is spinning, but it will eventually attack that Aurora, maybe. It'll just keep spinning, I guess. There was some weird issue where Valkyries were unable to attack under certain circumstances, and I couldn't figure out what it actually was. I thought it was fixed already, to be honest, but that's something I can look into later. Maybe it's a nice little fix for later on. We got a Scribe Drill coming in here. There's an Amaranth getting annihilated. Talking of things that need to be expanded out, it's very clear that this base needs to be expanded out. And I still want to do something similar for the Golden Terrans, because obviously we haven't unfucked the AI's building on different height levels than wherever the town was initialized on. So if it's initialized on high ground, which is like what this is medium ground, but as an example, it will refuse to build structures belonging to this town down here, even though there's plenty of space. Like a human player would obviously just do that. But the AI is weak facsimile under most circumstances. We do have some spinning as they attempt to take down the Solarian. It is dangerously low, but I'm not actually sure they're able to focus it. There's a Gladius, there's a couple of other units spinning around here. There's another Solarian that just finished. Yes, in Cosmonarchy, they finish and they have all 12 of their stewards, formerly known as interceptors. And yeah, obviously pretty good. The synthetic Synod coming out for this player is actually pretty scary, considering the sheer number of robotics authorities this player has. And obviously they're marching some Iquares down. Against the bio player, too. Like, I mean, he's got some air units, but good luck. I guess he's also got an ion cannon, so he should be relatively safe. He's actually doubled up on cannons. Got his captaincies lifted off, providing a lot of benefit, of course. And yeah, it looks like there's quite a bit of benefit going on here. If you're wondering why some of these units are not reviving, it's because I believe we are at the unit limit, which is partially due to the Solarian counts. Once those get thinned out, we'll have 13 less units for every Solarian that dies. So you got to keep that in mind. Another thing we don't have to worry about when this new engine Todd-foolery is finished. We've made some really good progress on that. I will probably talk about that in a video update at some point. But right now, we've got more pressing concerns. Yeah, you may have cleaned up some of the Acantors over here, but you've got some bigger problems as a golden Terran army has started to march in. Yeah, they're just continuously pumping out those units. They haven't yet achieved the higher tier stuff, which is, I mean, they have the technology for it. They just aren't actually using it. And this is a bugged starport. You can actually see the shadows down here. So that's an ancient bug from way back where the shadows render incorrectly. Well, basically the whole frame is incorrect. It's playing the landed frame when it's actually lifted off. But not that big of a deal, I suppose. It looks like we might be looking at Golden Supremacy pretty soon, although the 4 gas base being owned by the air player? Yeah, okay, maybe. I take it back, dude. I'm pretty sure Protoss are going to win again. As per usual, let's be honest. The other thing we still haven't tracked down is what causes the fraud cloak bug, where basically units are cloaked without being visibly cloaked, and this AI doesn't really... Oh, he does have a comm stat. So actually, I guess that's probably why I haven't seen that, is that even if they are fraud cloaked, the AI still scans them, so it's not really that big of a deal. But looking at the number of iQuares in this base, I don't know about that one. I like the Southpaw literally flies, but it still wanted transport over there. It's too lazy. Gonna need some more ends over here. Holy ends. Well, that's a sufficient number of ends, maybe? I guess if you're up against a Star Sovereign, there's never enough ends. Gladius is bouncing between all of them as well. This attack force has actually succeeded in doing quite a number on these units. They haven't yet focused down the command center, but at some point they probably will. You can see that occasional shots are actually being sent to them, because something that Veek changed somewhat recently is increasing the value, or reducing the cost of targeting a wounded structure. Specifically a town hall, and then a factory, and then a normal structure. So, yeah, pretty good. Penumbra are on the field now. That should stave off this assault. Obviously, they're very high DPS units, but only really when they have a front line, and this guy does not. Yeah, he's just going to get overwhelmed, of course. It's taking them quite a while to actually defeat him. And he has more elaborate death animation. He's got unit responses. There you go. Figured it out. There. He does a little spin. See ya. And then they just hurt themselves more than anything. Hey, these guys built an end. I don't know if that's allowed. My last castover was called Can Ahmed Win? Join us for the next one. Is N allowed? If only you knew what you were doing. You might be able to do something. Ooh, nice little army there. It'll be really nice when we have the when we actually have Cosmonarchy ported and functioning in the new engine. I mean, imagine what my AI will do then. Imagine all the possibilities. Yeah, at this point with a Star Sovereign positioned over here, you want him to kite into this base and start using that that thing, but he won't as long as this many allied units are around. But it's okay. I mean, he does a number just with his base attack, although he seems to be... Oh! He is gonna do it! The Mad Lad! It's in a bit of a weird position, but, you know. It's still got something. It's kind of a tough position to take a screenshot of, obviously, but you never know. Yeah, the fleets have arrived, dude. When you give over the 4 gas base to this guy, sorry to say, but I don't think you're gonna get very far. I mean, gas is his main limiting factor. And look at all the Stargates he's got. So we got a Minotaur. I think I saw a couple, actually. I don't know where the other one may have gone. The Phobos over here, so... Yeah, max tier tech is coming out, but the front line of Protoss has virtually been defeated at this point. I mean, we have so many Star Sovereigns in position to continue the glassing, continue the punishment, should they feel the need. Looks like currently they have other ideas. Even got Olympians out, so that's the max tier infantry, and more captaincies being replaced. The command center didn't actually go down, got repaired. Looks like they're going to expand to this base next, telegraphed by the Wayward Depot. No problems there. So yeah, it looks like we're getting Protoss supremacy after all. Not the Protoss for the Goldens, that's for sure. And I am still waiting for more glassing. Looks like they have to be convinced even further still. It looks like he's even pulling some of his units away to try to defend against the encroaching Orion armor players. We do indeed have a pariah. It is the end for them. Yeah, I'm not actually sure if this guy's got what it takes to hold off an assault. A combined assault between Blood and Silver Pink. The Calendric Knight players are virtually unrivaled currently if they can sync up their armies. Which, if you'll notice, that was one of the key victory conditions that the Golden Republic had, where we had multiple attack forces that were mostly of low-tier units that just stayed alive for long enough and had enough numbers in general to hold back the tides of one of the two Protoss players, and that gave opportunities for additional gameplay to be had. Unfortunately for them, I don't think it's going to be lasting for much longer, at least with this... oh, yeah, there's another glassing we just barely missed. And, yeah, there's just some shit happening, man. There's quite a bit of stuff at this point. And, like, look at the Solarian fleets, too. Like, these guys actually do have a decent amount of ships now that they have got that base. And they're not even interested. They don't need to expand at this point. Like, they've got enough resources locked away. They're on 4 bases right now. The Silver Pink Air Toss. I don't even think Balathal's Spartan model can save you now, homie. Especially if you're not targeting the right units. They do have the that little execution thing. I haven't added a read for that yet visually, but there is an audio cue you may have heard. Problem is, Solarians have kiting. Bye! Bye! Oh shit, there's more. Bye! Oh, a pariah just went down. Love that sound. Thanks, Mesk. But if a Star Sovereign is moving into position, you better shudder and hide. I guess the Penumbras actually should be able to deal with this, now that I think about it. And especially with the Pazuzus, obviously taking that damage. I don't know, the toughest part is obviously Solarians. Like, because the Solarians themselves don't attack, deconstruction damage doesn't apply to them. It would apply to the Stewards. But even those guys are not going to be that significant in the same way. So one thing I am kind of impressed by is the fact that this Golden Terran player is still alive. And I guess I shouldn't be surprised. He's also on 4 bases. He's even trying to steal his ally's main. Because he's like, listen, dude, you're out of the game. Just let me play. Just let me take care of this one, huh? But all of the aspirants have been killed by Solarians that have just kited forever. We got some lost Iquares that are surely not long for this world. Does he get another one out? Ooh, he does. And it's a juicy one, too. Well, that will stymie any aggression, any successful aggression anyway. And we do indeed have even more hilarity coming out from these guys. Good luck, Armor Orions. In fact, I think the Orions in general are in really tough positions. When I was initially drafting versions of this map in my head, I was kind of envisioning the Orion win condition to be attempting to squeeze out the Zerg, who's obviously the human player if you play this in single player. Good luck, by the way, if you manage to do that. I guess it's not impossible, but it's just funny to me to think of a player trying to deal with all of the shit that we've seen. Like, the Zerg bowed out very early on this time around because they got hit by 3 different players. Bye. Kiting into the enemy force is bold, but hey, it's actually pulling attention away from the front lines, which is where his ally might be trickling in. Certainly reinforcements in general, trickling in. I think we've only witnessed a single Star Sovereign death, but look at this fleet from the Golden Terrans. They're still in the game. They're still here. They still got plenty of shit. They're sending in even more fleets. They've transitioned into that air. And now, I mean, okay, well, you've got all the assimilators. You can keep the aquifers. Apparently, this guy just needs the minerals. They've negotiated. It's definitely not up to who got there first or anything. Pretty funny stuff. Phobos has gone down. That's not the only heavy hitters that they have here, though. The Centaurs are actually quite good at sniping out and focusing down enemy capital ships, and the Minotaurs can handle the ground armies. So this is a fairly successful offensive on paper. The question is, do they have the reinforcements? It looks like they do have some. Some savants also taking the field, which is kind of interesting. Though I don't know, unless they target some of those Cantavises, I don't see them having a massive amount of impact. Savants, if you're not familiar, apply a debuff on their attack, which, for a time, will convert damage or convert energy spent to damage. So obviously, they can only be used. This passive can only be used in the context of defeating spellcasters, targeting spellcasters. Yeah, at this point, it looks like they'll hold on to the Nexus. They've lost every single scribe bar one. And they still haven't yet dethroned this area either. It looks like they're kind of caught between two worlds. The Orion Terrans on the right side and the aggressing Golden Republic. One could even call it a Golden Armada. No, okay, it looks like maybe they will actually lose this Nexus. Some reinforcements are streaming in, and Centaurs are distracted, but Aspirants obviously hit pretty hard against structures with their heavy... well, it's explosive damage that deals max damage to heavy targets, specifically. Oh, we're starting to get some vassals, are we? That's an interesting idea. You can imagine enchanting your Star Sovereigns with vassals to make them move into glassing position faster. Jesus, the sheer number of these. Do they have Lazarus Agent is the question. They do. Dude, we're going to see some revive animations for the Penumbra. I have actually done the work to reverse the explosions, so we'll get to see those as soon as those Penumbra inevitably march into their death. Atreus doing his best to dismantle some Minotaurs. I doubt he'll be successful. The Phobos is back. It has returned. There we go. Oof! I guess we're at the unit limit, so we can't. What a cock tease. Hey, fuck that Cantavis up, dude. What are you doing? Ah, man. You've been spun. You've been exposed. Look at all the Heracles. You guys know Heracles is basically tier 2 Ahmed, right? So that's Ahmed, dude. This is Ahmed. I'm just waiting for more Star Sovereigns at this point. Archons.wav. Minotaur cancels the Nexus accidentally. And just fuck this, dude. I'm going to build it in a safer location. That might actually help, to be honest. I don't know. I don't think so, but it's possible. The question is, are we getting into that standstill area? I don't think so. Like, look at all of the money. He's got 2 bases that are kind of dry, but he's got 2 bases that are not, in terms of the, like, as far as the Silver Pink guy goes. I guess this guy's dry, isn't he? So Blood is dry on resources, and he needs that expansion to contribute further, which is odd, because usually he's the one to actually clear the way. It's just that he hasn't been able to successfully hold on to this. So the War of Attrition is contingent on whether or not the, I guess, the Orions successfully occupy the Golden Republic long enough for this guy's base to start bearing fruit and paying dividends, which to me seems unlikely at this point. The Vulture has come out. You never thought you'd see it at 28 minutes in, but there is indeed a Vulture. They are making effective use of this area back here, which is what I envisioned when I was designing it. This mineral field patch is obviously something that basically mandates some reasonable amount of air armies, something able to intercept them. Even just Southpaws with the low flight ability, Southpaws and Claymores can be sufficient in that sense. Obviously, Southpaws slow him down. And here we go. We got a Heracles army marching in. Tier 2 Ahmed time, dude. This looks like an army a player made. What happened here? And he's still got more at home. He's building more captaincies, more depots. He needs more Heracles. Oh, and I think he might even be going for an expansion. No, that was a depot, I think. judging by the amount of time. So yeah, okay, this might actually occupy them. Again, win condition right here, if they can stay alive long enough. I thought there was a huge fleet over here. It was just a single Solarian occupying a bunch of units, which is pretty funny. If only you actually focused on the Solarian, you goofball. Veek also, quote-unquote, fixed this, but I don't think it actually worked, judging by what I just witnessed. Okay, well, the Nexus is down again. Bye! Pretty sure it's down anyway. Oh, Disruption Field. Pretty good. Pretty good Disruption Field at this point. They haven't been able to shirk it away yet. It's doing some damage. And, okay, Overwhelmed. So not dead. Not dead after all. In fact, a fairly dangerous attack force. It seems pretty unlikely that they would be able to make something happen at this point, the Golden Republic. But at the same time, I think that's kind of the case for all of the teams that are currently alive here. Remember, we've got 6 players out of 7. The Zerg are the only ones who have fully capitulated, fully been eradicated. But at this point, like, what do you even do? How do you even mass an assault when you're a brainless AI that doesn't coordinate with your allies? You have to wonder this. And again, my win condition in my head was for the Orions to take the middle areas, but they seem to have elected to not bother expanding currently. I think part of that might be due to the unit limit being so close that the AI like probably has some internal handling to not actually create requests under certain circumstances. But even if they don't, it's just like, oh, well, I'm getting a CCMU error when I try to expand. So I believe these guys are fraud cloaked, as you can see here. I guess they don't have any energy on the comsat, which for some reason I can't see when I click on it, even though they have shared vision me. And we did finally get a crash. Let's take a look at what it is. Well, it looks like it was actually a crash I was able to fix, so at least there was some productivity had there, and I think the first good 30 minutes of this, or whatever it was, entertaining enough. Unfortunately, we didn't get to the payoff at the end to see who would have won. If I had to shadowbox it, I would say probably the Protoss. But it is contingent on them actually being able to expand. And unfortunately, just in this map, where only 7 players are, and I do say only legitimately, not like tongue-in-cheek, you still saw the unit limit play a huge part in the fact that they weren't able to expand further, they weren't able to get past certain army quantity breakpoints. And yeah, there's some things I can address on a script level. Obviously, the Zerg performance could have been better, and in general, the build orders could have maybe been a little bit attuned a little bit more specifically to this map. And certainly one of the areas that I want to try to improve upon eventually for Golden Souls is to have map-specific AI, and that will eventually come, and that will eventually alleviate some of the base layout issues that we saw. But at this point, we're just running up against the limitations of Brood War. We've been doing that for quite a while. And at some point, you have to say, I'm tired of bashing my head into this brick wall. Some of the bricks do come loose, and sometimes you can see to the other side. And what you see is greatness. But, you know, some of the bricks also block your view still, even to this day. And some of those are really important bricks. So we'll abandon that analogy at this point, but that is just something that's been on my mind for a while, especially as we start to work on Dreamhold, work on Antikythera as an engine, and start to port over all of this stuff. We could have a fraud-ready build of something in maybe just a couple of months at this point with the progress we've been making. So I would just encourage you to head on over to Veek7's channel on YouTube to check that out. I'll link it in the description so you guys can quickly subscribe to him. That's where some of our streams have been these past couple of days as of the time of recording this video. And yeah, you'll be able to keep up on development there. I will have some more documentation about what Dreamhold is a bit later. And of course, I will have more castovers, probably of maps that are a little bit lower on the totem pole in terms of scale, so we don't run into the issues that so grossly impact our ability to enjoy a game of Cosmonarchy. So stay tuned for more. And stay tuned for more map releases in general once these maps are actually furnished and ready to be played. And that is where I will leave you, actually. Once again, I'd have to tell you and implore you, don't die. Bye.